One morning, I was in the shower, and I discovered this small lump in my breast. I called my gynecologist, and he told me I needed to go for a mammogram. I find myself in a small, dark room with a large machine and a female technician. Hi, is this your first mammogram? Okay, come on in. Now, place your feet here and here. Good. Now, I'm gonna lift your breast onto this plate. Oh, it's a little bit cold? Oh. Okay, and now I'm gonna lower the top plate down. Yeah, just a little bit more. Yeah, just a little bit more. There we go. Now, place your hand here and here. Don't move. Oh my God! I'm not going anywhere. My breast is pressed into an unnatural shape. I know this machine was invented by a man. I'd like to see them use this procedure to check for testicular cancer. Sure enough, I had a lump. My gynecologist said not to worry, come back in 6 months. Well, 6 months later, I did not feel like going back and hugging that machine. I asked him, wasn't there another procedure that could yield a little more information? I find myself in a small, dark room with a large machine and a female technician. Come on in, lay down here. Okay, where's your lump? Okay, I'm gonna put this on. Oh, it's a little cold? Sorry. Now, this is a sensing device. It appears to be solid. At that moment, a strand of fear entered the top of my head and wove itself into my entire being. My gynecologist told me I needed to find a surgeon who would do a lumpectomy. I didn't know any surgeons, so I began shopping around for surgeons. Surgeon number 1. He was the best in the state. Lectured at the medical school. Everybody knew him. It took me 2 months to get an appointment with this guy. He must be good. On the day of the appointment, I filled out a questionnaire. Family medical history, birth control choices. Are you allergic to any medications? He told me exactly what I needed to do, scheduled me for surgery the next week, and had me out of his office like that. Surgeon number 2. I filled out a questionnaire, family medical history, birth control choices. Are you allergic to any medication? I knew I was getting older. The doctors were getting younger. This guy reminded me of my kid brother's best friend. I found myself thinking, maybe he would do better surgery if we had sex. Surgeon number 3. I filled out a questionnaire, family medical history, birth control choices. Are you allergic to any medication? She was direct, informative, supportive, assured me that a lumpectomy would be a simple, one-day outpatient procedure and let me decide when I was ready. I set the date. Only now I knew I was going to be entering a world of hospitals, a place I never go, where germs run free. Where's an open wound? And doctors and nurses are busy. I'll be with you in a moment. Oh. And they use strange-smelling chemicals to keep everything clean. Ew, it stinks in here. I need a breath of fresh air. I knew I was going to need a little help getting ready for this experience, so I called together a circle of friends. And we decided to make some dolls, healing dolls. Dolls of a goddess, a healing spirit. My doll was stuffed with white nylon netting erupting out of her head. She had on wild gold lame pants, an animal skin vest, and a red velvet smile. I had my companion with me to take into surgery. Another friend from my cancer survivor group had given me a tape to prepare me for the experience. You are now entering the room in which the procedure will take place, and sleepily through half-closed eyes, you will see the color green, bright lights, and awareness of people moving around about you. The clean green uniforms of the surgical staff, and you are becoming even more relaxed with each thing that you see. When I awoke, my surgeon was hovering beside the operating room table, her mouth open. We found cancer her mouth closed. As they gently lifted me off of the gurney, off of the table onto the gurney, they rolled me down the hallway, and I watched the acoustical tiles and light panels passing over my head, and I wondered, with all the people they have rolling down this hallway on their back, why don't they have little signs with arrows on the ceiling that say, operating room, recovery room, restrooms, emergency exit? The ride home in the car was filled with silence. This is my body. I've been in it most of my life, except for those few occasions when I left, but I always came back. It's my home. But it wasn't always like this. When I was a kid, I wanted to be like my dad, outside, chest bared in the sun, getting ready to mow the lawn. I pulled my shirt off and ran outside. Dad! Dad! Can I help? He took one look at me. Get back in the house. Put your shirt on. Don't come out here like that. And then, when I was 14, my mother decided I needed to go on high estrogen birth control pills. I didn't even have a boyfriend. She was the one having all the affairs. And then, 6 months later, I woke up one morning. I had breasts. Perky, young, nipple-pointing upward breasts. Large enough to be noticed. Not too large so as to be a burden. I loved them. The weight, the shape, the movement. Pretty soon I noticed that there was a change in the way boys spoke to me. They stopped looking at my face. They were staring at my breasts. I wanted to learn ventriloquism so I could continue to communicate with them. I have breasts, tits, grapefruits, bazoomas, jumps, assets, 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 assets. And then I studied modern dancing. And I began to notice that all the other girls were little stick figures, and that maybe breasts were not an asset in this line of work, because the choreographers wanted you to notice the movement through space and time, not the breasts bouncing across the stage. Then I got my first job dancing in Japan, topless. For 4 months, my body was draped in costumes designed to make you look at my breasts. Creatively wrapped strands of pearls, skin-tight unitards with no front, sequin underwire bras with the cups cut out. I even did a striptease dressed as a little girl in a gingham dress with pigtails to the disco version of On the Good Ship, Lollipop with Disco Man. Men would rush to the edge of the stage, filled with desire for my breasts. Years later, after I'd had my lumpectomy and received the diagnosis of cancer, it was time to go back for my post-op consultation. I gathered together a well-researched list of questions, my husband, Stephen, and a tape recorder. It's amazing what I don't hear in these appointments with doctors. It was an invasive intraductal carcinoma, 1.7 centimeters in size. Now the question is, what was the biological behavior of this tumor in you before it was removed? Was it just there, or had it moved to another place in your body? Now, we don't really have any good tests yet for systemic involvement. We can do CAT scans, bone scans, liver spleen scans, blood tests, but none of these are really sensitive enough to check on the molecular level. So, what are my options? She's a surgeon. With her, I know what my options are. But for me, at that time, that was not an option. How could my body do this to me? What about all those years of party, smoking cigarettes, pot, whatever? Hey, wait a minute, I was clean and sober for 7 years. Yeah? What about the preceding 15? You were pretty sexually active. Hey, wait a minute. Was it growing up in LA? With all that smog? Maybe. Was it because I had a bad relationship with my mother? Because I like coffee with half and half in it? Was it the underwire bras, the aluminum in the VO juice, the chlorine in the tampons, the poison in the food? Was it my jeans? Oh, they were too tight. Oh, I forgot to have kids. I love sugar. I don't love enough. I have repressed anger. At one time, I wanted to be a doctor, but the reason I'm not a doctor is because I failed chemistry. I can't stand the sight of blood, and sick people skeeve me out. You know, I think the only reason I ever wanted to be a doctor was so that I could hear, bong, Dr. Goodwin, stacked to the OR. I had my lumpectomy and a second one to get clear margins. But what do I do now? Is there still cancer in my body? I don't know. So I began reading the vast quantity of scientific information, describing treatments and procedures I couldn't even begin to understand. And I had to be honest with myself. At that time, the options that Western medicine had to offer me, lethal doses of chemotherapy, rays of radiation, and hormone-altering prescriptions of tamoxifen. At that time, I did not consider forms of healing. They frightened me. And so, my friends began sending me articles from alternative periodicals, newsletters from clinics in Europe, and books about people who were cancer-free because, and I find myself entering the world of alternative medicine! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the land of healing, where you can bring yourself back to complete health and feel better than you have probably felt in your entire life. Now, let's begin with food. Remember, eat as if your life depended on it, because it does. How about diet? Let's see, we can try the no zone. Oh, the zone. The no fat, change your life completely, become macrobiotic, never go out. Yes, eat seaweed and strained seeds and miso for breakfast. Oh, and remember, everything organic and eliminate dairy products, meat, poultry, coffee, chocolate. Hey, I like chocolate. Alcohol, tobacco, recreational drugs, sugar, sucanat, maple syrup, honey. No sugar? And remember to juice, lots and lots of juice. And I don't mean bananas and pineapple. I'm talking about all those green leafy vegetables. Swiss chard, spinach, cabbage, and kale, squeezed inside a juicer to make a lovely green slime. No sugar? And become informed. Be sure to read Deepak Chopra, Bernie Siegel, Susan Love, Susan Weed, Carolyn Mace, Michael Lerner, Steve Austin, Andrew Weil, The Breast Book, Breast Cancer, Breast Health, My Healing from Breast Cancer, Choices in Healing, Spontaneous Healing, Breast Cancer, What You Should Know But Might Not Be Told, The ECAC Connection, Beating Cancer with Nutrition, Making Miracles Happen, Kitchen Table Wisdom, It's Not About the Bite, Close to the Bone, The Red Devil, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Okay, but what else can I do? What about treatment? Well, let's just take a look at a small sampling of some of the treatment options that are available to you. The Gerson therapy, with its famous coffee enemas. Is that black? Or with cream and sugar? Expose yourself to severe fevers and chills. once a week for 6 months, using Coley's toxins. Of course, these are only available in third world countries, like Guatemala and Florida. Na 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 na, na 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 na. Use shark cartilage. They never get cancer. Kill all the sharks so that we can live? In Israel, a scribe has rediscovered an ancient potion made up of 11 different herbs. Using this information, as well as knowledge from rabbinic, Arabic, and other sources, he has created a potion made up of echinacea, myrrh, skullcap, and hot peppers. In New York, there's a lady who can shrink your tumors for $200 an hour using angels and light. It's true. In the United States, immunology scientists have created direct gene transfer. The DNA of a cancer cell, when disrupted, often gives rise to mutant proteins. These can then be recognized by the immune system and destroyed. Every morning, go outside in your bare feet. Take a walk. Feel the energy of Mother Earth coming into your body. My cousin, he'd hold his nose, knock back 2 quarts of Coors, and ride on the tilt-a-whirl. Cancer's gone. Go ahead, make a choice. I changed my diet 3 times. I try coffee enemas, and then I graduate to calemas. If you don't know, don't ask, you're lucky. I apply pine tar poultices to my breasts to pull the cancer out through my skin and cannot submerge myself in water for the entire 6 weeks they are on my body. I take 30 supplement pills a day. I rub my breasts with essential oils. I learn to collect weeds, dry them, and create infusions. I go on shamanic journeys. I take a sweat lodge. I even go to the woman in New York City for $200 an hour who works with angels and light. I use Bach flower remedies, live red blood cell analysis, and I find out that jumping on the mini tramp for 30 minutes a day will stimulate my immune system. I practice the Symington method. 3 times a day, I sit quietly and visualize the cancer in my body. At first, it appears to me as a pile of black slime. And then, I visualize something that will eliminate the cancer. First, I visualize ladies, thousands of them with picnic baskets, skipping to the cancer, picking up burritos, putting them in the basket, skipping to my intestines, and out they go. Then, I imagine samurai warriors. And then I imagine angels singing to the cancer. And the cancer shrinking. Until the cancer's gone, and I am cancer-free. Only, I'm not cancer-free. And then, my friend John gets diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma. My first friend to be diagnosed since I was diagnosed with cancer. He calls me on the phone one day, and his voice sounds exactly like my father's voice when my father was dying of cancer and I was 15. I remember standing around the hospital bed with friends of the family from the church, and they were all talking about how, oh, he looks great, he's gonna make it. And I'm thinking, why are they lying? It's obvious the man's dying. There's these tubes coming out of different parts of his body going into various containers beside the bed. And the sound of his breathing. And I couldn't make myself call John back. And then he died. I keep imagining that somewhere there's got to be a doctor who put together Western medicine alternative methods. Nope. And then my friend Melissa tells me about an anthroposophic doctor in Hudson, New York. That's a doctor who studied to become an MD and then went on to study the teachings and philosophy of Rudolf Steiner. His philosophies maintained that through a prescribed method of self-discipline, an awareness of the spiritual world can be attained. I decided to drive to her farm. Her office was quiet. She had windows out, looking over flowering fruit trees and leaping llamas. We had this long conversation about how somewhere along the way, I had lost a commitment to myself, and that cancer was an opportunity for me to have a new commitment. And I needed to feel an enthusiasm for my malady. I needed to bring warmth into my body. And one of the ways to bring warmth into my body was with bees. So we went outside her office and she had a beehive. She put this little glass jar on the hole in the back of the beehive. A little bee flew in. We brought it back into the office. I sat on the examining table, top down. She pulled out these long tweezers, reached into the jar and pulled out the bee. By now the bee was pretty pissed. And she takes the bee and she lays the bee on my breast right at the tumor site. And the little bee but's wiggling. And I see the stinger coming out. And then I see it stinging. Ah! And I don't have an allergic reaction, which means I get to do bee sting therapy. I get to find a beekeeper who's willing to sell me bees every week, and then Stephen has to build a bee box, and I have to make sure the bees don't get cold. 3 times a week I go into my bathroom and I pull my long tweezers out, reach into the bee box and get a bee, lay it on my breast. I have to sting myself 4 times and then watch the bees die. After about 8 weeks, there's not much change. I call the doctor. She says, I think you need to consider a mastectomy. Look, I have been trying to keep my breast for 3.5 years. I'm sure there's something else that can be done. Well, if you feel that way, fine. Good luck. I hope you find someone, and when you're cancer-free, be sure to call me back. Click. What? I couldn't believe it. She hung up on me. I was so pissed. I have this lump growing in my breast. None of the alternative treatments I'm doing are stopping it. I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. Things are going out of control here. So I call my friend Jane. She's been chronically ill for a very long time. She has done everything. I tell her, Jane, what am I going to do? She says, BJ, she's the kind of person. She goes for tests. She brings him to the doctor looks at the test, looks at her, you should be dead. And then they start questioning her. They don't question the tests. She tells me, BJ, I think you could go see my guy in New York. He's a little weird, but I think you can handle it. Her guy in New York? He has an office on the Upper West Side in one of those pay-by-week hotels that hasn't been redone. I go up the stairs and there's grime in the cracks. And as I walk down the hallway, it's worn carpeting and it has that kind of old smell. I feel like I'm going to get an illegal abortion. I knock on this door that's been painted so many times it doesn't even fit into the door jamb. The door opens and he's just some guy. He got sick, nobody could heal him, so he started to try and find ways to heal himself, and in the process, discovered these different healing modalities that sometimes help people with chronic illness. I squeeze past him into the tiniest room I've ever seen. I sit in the only other chair. Next to me is this double bed with a faded bedspread. And then the wall space is all filled with bookshelves with books about healing I've never seen. And then there's a counter, forget it. It could never be clean. And on top of it is a broken gas burner from the previous century. And then there's a window with an air conditioning unit and lots of New York City dirt. And the smallest washroom I've ever seen, filled with supplements. We're sitting knee to knee, and he explains, again, the exact nature of my disease. It's the endocrine system. And then he tells me what I'm going to need to do. Weekly appointments in New York City, constantly changing supplements that can only be purchased from one pharmacy in New York City, extensive testing done on my endocrine system, and I need to find a doctor who can deal with the cancer directly, preferably not with chemotherapy. I can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't jump through another set of hoops that leads who knows where. I have an acupuncturist, a naturopath, a homeopath, physical therapist, and none of them can agree on what kind of supplements I'm supposed to be taking. I'm trying to stay on this diet, and I've never had the diet in my life. And I'm trying to keep up to date on the latest treatments, procedures, doctors. I'm overwhelmed. I have become a medical consultant without any training. Well, I guess it's time to saddle up, little filly, and head on back to Western medicine. They can't all be wrong. Go on, get yourself some opinions. Whoa, that's a huge paradigm shift. Come on, it's time to go to one of them cancer treatment facilities. One of them medical industrial complexes, a hyphenated hospital. The hospital schedules me for a full day of appointments. I begin by filling out a questionnaire. Family medical history, birth control choices, are you allergic to any medication? I begin the day seeing a new surgeon, and then I go for a core needle biopsy. I find myself in a large dark room with a small machine and a male technician. He explains the core needle biopsy procedure to me, and I'm in tears. The nurse comes in to begin the procedure, and he says, wait a minute, we need a little more time. She leaves. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. And just because he's so kind, and he reminds me that I have a choice, I decide to go through with the procedure. He takes out the device. It's like a reverse nail gun. A needle shoots out, picks up a few cells, and sucks them back in. He lays it on my breast at the tumor site. Ka-chunk! 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 I'm fairly traumatized after that procedure. And then I wander through the vast complex, down the corridors and up elevators, trying to find my way to the hospital next door. Whoops. And I locate the oncology floor. They escort me into a consultation room, and I stand looking out the window, thinking, how did I end up in an oncologist's office? There's a knock on the door. He enters with 3 interns. Do you mind if they join us? It's a teaching hospital. No. I mean to say, yes, I mind. I feel uncomfortable. It's me alone in the room with 4 men I don't know. And I forgot to eat lunch. I'm feeling a little hungry, a little cranky, and I forgot to bring a friend with me for this day of doctor appointments. They began interrogating me about my previous treatment choices, and then they say, well, we want to look at the results of the core needle biopsy and the tests before we recommend a procedure.